Continuing now with our Thought Leaders series here on LMFM, and we're joined by a man who's tipped by many to be the next president of the IFA. Eddie Downey has spent over 25 years supporting his fellow farmers with many roles on committees and indeed his current role of chair of the Meath branch of IFA. Good morning, Eddie, and thank you for coming into us.
Good morning, Orla.
You are representing farmers all those years, and I'm sure the thing that is top of mind with every farmer in the country at the moment is the weather, and the weather. You're passing fields and seeing tractors on standby to pull combines out of fields. It must be just dreadful, is it?
It's horrendous. It's very, very difficult, you know. Yeah, you're right. Weather. That's all we talk about at the moment. And it's very hard to get away from it. You know, agriculture, we're going pretty well. Farming was going pretty well up until this year. But it's just amazing how much the weather affects us as regards profit levels on farms and the general humour among farmers on the ground. Last weekend we were at the Combines for Charity event just up the road here in Platten, and a wonderful event, broke a world record. But at the end of that event, in comparison to 2009 when we did the same thing, all the farmers got off the combines and they were all standing around, you know, cheering and whatever. This time they did the job and they went, because they're just that far down as regards depressed as regards.
So there wasn't a lovely buzz and a lovely festival feeling.
Well, there was a good buzz and there was a good feeling about it, and it was a great event, marvellous and wonderful organisation. Everybody it went well, but it was just that little bit of an edge on people because of the weather. Because
fields that were never wet are this year sodden.
That's right, and you know. This was a grain farmers event, and these combines were ready to cut the harvest. And this year, in particular, difficult weather, difficult harvest conditions. But the grain itself is worth a lot of money, so there's a lot of stress, a lot of pressure on farm families to try and get that harvested. There's only a couple of weeks to do it, and a grain farmer's income is completely dependent on the next 3 to 4 weeks.
So you have this kind of window to get the grain in, get it bagged up, get it sold, and it's looking really tough this year.
It looks that way, but God is good, and you know, the weather tends to balance itself out, and as farmers we have to be optimistic, and we hope that not alone do we get good weather, but the whole community gets good weather.
It's reported that there has been a surge of interest in farming as a career, with the agricultural colleges now filling up again. Why is this?
Well, I think, you know, for a period of time farmers were out of fashion, I think it was. You know, I have a son, he's 18 years of age, and he wants to go to farm, and he's going to agricultural college next year. And for a number of years, people just say, why are you bringing that fellow home to farm? Why would you let him come home to farm? And this was the attitude out there. Something I totally disagreed with, because I feel I've done well out of farming. You may not have made a lot of money along the way, but we've had a good living, I suppose. But it's more than just a job. It's a way of life. It's something that you want to do, and you're born into it, and you're born to do it. You know, when you raise children on a farm and they grow up beside you and they farm with you and walk behind you, walk in your shadow for a long period of time. As I joked in a meeting the other day, you know, my 18-year-old, he walked in my shadow all his life. Now I'm walking in his, because he's moving much quicker than me.
And he's probably twice the size of you.
Well, he's not quite yet, no. But that's the way it goes. You know, it's a wonderful place to bring up children. It's a wonderful life. We just like to get an income out of it.
Yeah, but it must be gratifying indeed if your son is interested in following you. That is saying something, isn't it?
Well, hopefully, yeah. And you know, it is. It adds an extra buzz to the whole situation when you're working around the yard and working around the farm. The other thing that's important, you know, as you say, the colleges are full. They're packed at the moment to capacity and overflowing, and people have not got places in Ag College. And good friends of mine, their children didn't get places over the last couple of years, and we simply couldn't get them in. Now it says a number of things. One, you know, the Celtic Tiger is dead for the moment. Something else will replace it, and the economy will recover. But you know, agriculture stays there. It continues to move on at a steady pace. And I think, like all indigenous industries, and I think that's maybe where Ireland lost its viewpoint. We lost focus in that we forgot about indigenous industry.
You mentioned there the way of life, and as you say, indigenous industry, and what it means to us in rural Ireland, what the farming community contributes on so many levels to the community. But you, I know, were very involved some time ago in the Rise campaign, and that was where, you know, people who liked the dogs and liked the bit of fishing and the bit of shooting and whatever felt that their way of life was being threatened, maybe.
Yeah, well, you know, we're very traditional in this country, and particularly in rural Ireland, and we practices and sports have grown up over the years. These are all things that, you know, they're part of the Irish culture. They're part of the social fabric. The guys go out with their guns at the weekend to do a bit of shooting or a bit of fishing. They come back and they have a drink in the local pub. They have a chat. They have a conversation. People get to meet each other. That's how the community stays alive. Without these type of sports, these type of activities, the GAA is another typical example. You go to the match, and I was at the Leinster final last week, and we didn't get the result we wanted. But then I suppose any County Loud people might say we got the one we deserved, so we can't really apologise for that. But look, they are all great sporting activities. All these things are part and parcel of rural Ireland, and the importance of them can't be overestimated.
Absolutely. The future of farming, you know, we're talking about young people going back into farming, and obviously with the Celtic Tiger there might have been a feeling that there wasn't enough money in it when it was all driven by standards of living. And now, as you say, maybe we're looking elsewhere and we're looking for different values. But is there a future in farming, would you think?
Oh, I think there is. I think, you know, you've got 9 billion people in the world. That's going to expand to 11 billion by 2050. That's a demand for food. Food is needed, and good quality food is needed. The Eastern economies are changing rapidly in the affluence of the people, and as a community or a society changes in its affluence, it also changes its eating habits. They're now consuming a lot of meat, a lot of dairy products. These are the products that we're ideally suited to produce here in Ireland. We have 500 million people in Europe. That's 500 million people
all waiting to be fed.
Have to be fed, and this is the Green Island. If you ask, is there a future for agriculture, and this may sound strange in a year like this, but the one thing that's limiting food production all over the world at the moment is water and availability to water. We have it in abundance. Now, we have too much of it this year, but in a normal year, and hopefully we'll get back to normal years, that the value, the water and the land and the soil that we have in this country is first rate. We produce some of the best food products in the world. You just have to look at, I was in a German supermarket only 3 weeks ago, and we were looking at Kerrygold butter being the top product on the shelf. The first product of choice by the German consumer.
Kerrygold is a phenomenal success story. It really is. But I mean, you look at other big food conglomerates like Kerry and Glanbia and Avonmore, and they're the same. They're working at creating this big brand with Ireland as this green provider of food for Europe. But do we need to do more? Do farmers need to think of the end product more, rather than just producing the cattle or producing the bag of spuds? That how do we process that, produce it, package it, brand it, and put it on those shelves in Germany that you're talking about?
You know, we need to look. It's a whole process, and it's all got to be integrated, much more integrated as time goes forward. Because we produce a product, we produce an animal, but the animal may not be the exact size and that's required for the different supermarkets and the different cuts of meat that's required on the continent. We had a group of farmers out in Germany recently, and they were served up carpaccio beef, which is raw beef. Now, they just couldn't understand this, and they thought this was a crazy way to produce and produce beef on a plate. But that's the delicacy that's required in that community, in that area. So if we're going to produce beef, we don't need to produce it for what we traditionally think it should be. We've got to produce what the market wants. So that's a process that's going to have to take of change that's going to have to come in. But we do that at this stage, and we have changed dramatically over the last number of years the product we produce. So we respond to the markets, but maybe not as quickly as we should. But that's that's education, and that's an education process. A lot of new young farmers coming into the industry now over the next number of years. They're vibrant, they're educated, they're enthused by what they see in front of them. They see massive challenges there, but opportunities. These guys will transform the industry.
You were talking there about Europe and the potential in Europe and Ireland to be the food basket for Europe, but even looking at a bigger market like China. I was speaking to somebody recently who came back from China, and they said this growing, emerging middle class in China, and they're going mad for what they see as exotic products or what they see as Western foods, and there's a whole market there to be opened up to actually give them the kind of things we eat because they want to learn about it.
That's right. They want to move their standards to Western type standards as they see it. We can fill some of that market. We can supply some of the product to that market. My view is we need to supply that on a niche product basis. We need to create products for those markets that are the top of the range, the top of the price structure, that somebody takes them as a treat and as a something special when they eat it. If we aim at just the commodity end of it, we'll get swallowed up because we're small, but we're brilliant at what we do. So sell it on as a niche basis, and then I think we can get a return back to the farmer by doing that.